In the game of life, the bold are guided by two unapologetic groups: the unmuters who speak their truth, and the rebels who live life on their own terms. These are their stories.
Welcome to episode 12 of the Unmuted podcast, where I interview exceptional people who share their stories around being muted in their life and the things that they do to unmute. Today, I have a very special guest. All my guests are always special and they're always brothers and sisters. But Allana, welcome to my podcast. I am so excited to have you here today.
Yay, I am excited to be here. Thank you so much. I am just so excited to watch you do this podcast, and I can't wait for when you've got like 10 million followers and
Seriously,
all this
you're
kind
the
of
one who's going
wonderful
to take
things.
me to like
Yeah, no,
500.
exactly. So yeah, I was like really excited to come speak to you because, you know, being a business owner, I so often get on and talk just about my products, that what they for, all of that. But I was like really excited to be able to talk about something a bit different because I started thinking about unmuted. What does that mean? And
Yeah.
it has it has such a big thing. And I remember one time years ago, I was doing some sort of energy work with somebody and they were like checking stuff, and I definitely had a blocked heart chakra which I've worked on, but they definitely talked about my blocked throat chakra. And I was like, and I remember at the time, this was like earlier in my kind of journey, being like, easy for them to say, what do they mean, but you know what I mean,
Yeah.
because I'll make it about me, had become so trapped in what I felt I could and couldn't say and what I could and couldn't do, and just all of the things I had to be and do and say to be what I felt the world wanted out of a mother, a wife, a this, a that, you know what I mean? And so this is going to give me an opportunity to get into that conversation and share that side of my story with people,
This is
you know.
going to be amazing because this is unscripted and I'm just already seeing what you said in that, what you just said and where it can go. And essentially, as you talk about unmuted, I mean, I'm realizing I'm more visual than I'm not. I used to say I don't see things, but it's literally that, we're energetic beings and it's literally that you have energy and somebody's pressed the mute button on you. Somebody's pressed the mute button and this whole process of unmuting, it's so individual, right? And it's that you as a person, me as a person, any of us can go into ourselves and hit that button again to start being us, right?
Right, but you know what you just said about somebody hitting the mute button. Oftentimes we don't even realize it, but it's us who hits our own mute button. Like what I was just saying, like I stopped because I felt like it wasn't what I was supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
And what was happening is that even though I was the one who was keeping myself quiet, I was actually becoming resentful at the fact that I wasn't expressing myself. And it was kind of coming out in different ways and making me kind of angry and at times lashing out at folks. And then you feel guilty because you've now lashed out in a way that you're like, "Ooh, that wasn't right." But, you do it because it's that pent up energy, right?
Yes.
Because like
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
gotta go
It's
somewhere.
got to
And
go somewhere.
it's either gonna get channeled into something really good, or it's gonna get channeled into like something not so great. Um,
So the question I have for you, and this is a hard question, and sometimes it's not. Can you pinpoint the first time in your life where you feel like you pressed that mute button on yourself, or you
mm,
started thinking, okay, it's not safe to speak up. It's not safe to be me.
mm.
Would you say it was a moment in time or just happened gradually?
Well, and this was not gonna be what I was gonna talk about, but I'm gonna bring it up.
Mhm.
Um, honestly, that mute button for me began to be pressed as a very young girl. I am biracial. my father is African American. My mother is Caucasian, German, and English descent. And early 70s, biracial children were not the norm. And my mom's family disowned my mom because she married a black man. And so they would not, they wouldn't even lay eyes on me. And what ended up happening is that I had a very separate life, especially after my parents got divorced. They split when I was 3. And so I would be in one world with my father, black, African American world, and I would be in another world with my mother, white, and it was totally different. And so things that I could say and do in one, I could not say and do in the other. I,
Wow.
and so I learned to selectively mute what I was feeling. So I remember, as a when I would be in the white family, I had to be very careful because if I said something that made them feel bad or guilty about the fact that nobody wanted, like I knew on my mother's side of the family, I obviously knew my mother, my grandmother, my uncle, and her father, but he was kind of removed a bit, my grandfather. So that was all I knew. All the rest of her people just went zoop. They would not
It would
have anything
not.
to do with me. I to this day, I have no idea what anybody looks like. I have no idea, like one time my great grandmother heard my voice on the phone because I was at my grandma's house and I picked up the phone and I said hello. And when she said, "This is Lee," and I was like, and it clicked to me like who this was. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've never, ooh. And so I just like, hold on one moment. I will go get her. Just one moment, please. Blah, blah, blah. I put the phone down and I went to get her and, she talked to him and my grandmother got off the phone. She said, your great grandmother said you sounded like a very polite and well-spoken young lady. And I was like, and I didn't really understand, like later on, you come to like take those things to mean something different when you get older and you understand all of the implications that that statement, well spoken and all of that mean in that particular instance. And at the time, I remember being like, hmm, but I couldn't voice that to my grandmother because if I voiced anything like that to my grandmother or any of the white people, they would go, Allana, you just can't say certain things and you have to understand that it's a complicated situation and these
Complicated
are not
situation.
bad people, it's complicated. So I wouldn't say that you don't want to think or say that they might be racist. It's complicated. And so I learned to just, okay, don't say anything. And
Because it's
then
complicated.
it's complicated. And then when I would go over to the black side, now mind you, this is like early 70s, power to the
Yeah.
people, early mid 70s. We're still not quite as much as like the 60s with Malcolm X and all that, but a lot of that is still coming on. And so there I would be surrounded by black people. And I remember we were walking to the park and I was with my cousins and we're going to the park and one of my cousins like stopped me, grabbed me by the arm and he said, listen, when you get over there, you're going to have fun, but I do not tell them that you are white. You are just very, very light skinned. You are not white.
Oh my gosh.
You're black. And I was like, oh, okay.
So
You
here you're
know,
being told it's complicated, and here you're being told, don't tell them you're white.
yeah, because especially at that time, white
Yeah.
people were, I mean, and many, right, quite frankly, quite rightfully so,
Hmm.
white people were kind of the enemy. They were the people who were doing a lot of things. And my cousin, he was trying to help me, but he didn't want me to complicate the conversation or have these people judge me because, it's a whole thing within the black community, but when you're fair skinned, there's this whole connotation that you think you're better and this and that. And it's not really true. We go through so much because we end up feeling not accepted by either, I mean, especially for biracial people, we oftentimes feel not totally accepted in the white community. And when we have things like this happen in the Black community, which is very prevalent, or people judging us, we feel not quite accepted in the Black community. Like, I'm not Black enough to be Black. I'm not white enough to be white. So I'm in the middle, but I have to learn how to shut my mouth so that I can function in both places.
This is why I love this, because I did not know this would take this direction. You bring this up. I am 100% Indian, and that whole thing with skin color is so rampant throughout India that, I mean, they sell bleach cream in India. When I
Mm-hmm.
would go to India, I mean, and our family is from the South, so Tamil Nadu, Chennai area, and we're typically darker. For whatever
Mm-hmm.
reason, my family were lighter. And so then there was
Mm-hmm.
just this whole thing, constant conversation that I didn't even realize that I was picking up on since I was little about being lighter skinned. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I started going to visit India and visit my family, of course, I'd take a walk. If just walking from one house to the other and you're out and it's sunny, so you're gonna have red cheeks and maybe have a tan. And then I would get to the home and they'd be like, "You've turned black." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Or
Mm-hmm.
there was this if family came and visited here, there was this fear. I mean, I'm saying this for the first time with you too. There was
Yeah,
this fear going
wow.
to New York, like, but the black people are gonna hurt us. And I'm like, and I
Mm.
said to an uncle once, I was like, "You realize you're black? You're the same color." Because he was much darker. And
Mhm.
my mom was so mad. She's like, "Don't say that. You're gonna get offend him." And I was like, "How is that not offensive?" And I was young. So this
Yeah.
is a conversation that needs to be had more and
Well,
more.
it's interesting because Eric was talking with um, Malik from his old job at Lavelle, and
Eric's
he's
your
from
husband.
Oregon. And he got the same message when he moved to New York about stay away from the Black people, they're dangerous. So there is definitely this colorist thing. But what was interesting when you were talking about the suntan is that in the summer, I would get very tan because I'd be out. And then my father used to work on Fire Island, which is a island off the coast, Long Island, like out further deeper on the island. And so I would be out there and I'd be swimming and doing all this stuff, and then the sun, and I would come back totally dark. And I remember my grandmother and different people like, "Ooh, okay, ooh, wow, we're just bringing this very very dark child into Valley Stream, New York, which at the time was very, very Caucasian, Italian. I'm trying. There were different people. It was a mixture, but it was all
Yeah.
primary. It was all white. And at that time, I mean, it's funny now. I went back years later. I went back like in my 30s later, and by that point, the area had completely changed, and it was like all these black people. And I remember getting panicky. Like I was like, oh my god. Like what are all these black people doing here in Valley Stream? Like what is going on? Like and it shocked me because growing up it was so white and so, like I had to actually like adjust. But as a little girl coming back dark skinned because of the tan that I had gotten over the summer and having curly hair, it was like, wow, okay, so I had to learn how to be quiet. And you learned to ignore or not respond to comments that were made. Some blatantly mean, but others just made out of ignorance, but still hurtful, even though the intention wasn't necessarily there. And so, yeah, so I guess I'm thinking about, like, dang, I, I started learning how to mute at a very young age, and
Holy cow.
you hold it down,
And you
right?
hold it down. And so then fast forward, how you're you're a teenager, you're a young adult. How did that play into your life?
Well, oh my God, we are going into places I never even thought. So, when I was a teenager, my mom had moved me, or we had moved, and up until the sixth grade, we were moving every single year. So I never really got settled in one place. And we had actually moved from a place that was very diverse to a place that was not so diverse. There were Caucasian people, white people, and then there were They were Latino, but that was it. And the Latinos were super poor and kind of treated less than. And then you had the white people. And we lived in an area where there was a lot of skinheads and racism and stuff like that. And so this, of course, was the place that when my mom finally did decide to settle down and move, this is the place that we grew up. And I was like, oh,
Which which
I
state?
hated it. You know, say, I'm sorry,
Which
what?
which
Oh,
state?
this was in California, Southern
California.
California.
Okay.
So I was living in the Sunland Tujunga area, and it was
Never
so such
heard
a
of it.
small area that they put it together, Sunland Tujunga. And I went to Verdugo Hills High School, and at that time, it was definitely there was like basically two. There was next to no black people. There was a couple dotted in here and there, but there weren't any black people. So looking the way that I look, you had the white kids and you had the Mexican kids, and I definitely began hanging out more with the Mexican kids because of the way that I looked. And so, of course, I became wanting to date them and different things. And so I had different times where it wasn't that I had learned growing up that you really don't talk. I never really talked about my race. I never really talked about anything like that. I especially learned that because growing up, you didn't talk about that stuff. And, so I would be in these different environments and then I'd be around Mexican people and they would think I was Mexican and they would start talking about black people. And it was like, and there were many times where I had to keep my mouth very quiet. And sometimes it hurt because, you start wanting to date or, you start getting
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
boys or whatever. And you're like, oh my gosh. I remember um, there was this one boy that I liked and we had actually kissed or whatever. And then the next day he started saying stuff about black people. And I was like, oh no. And I really liked him. And I thought, but I had to like find it in myself to say, hey. And of course that ended that whole little
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
Not that it was ever, I mean, it's these puppy dog little random
Yeah.
teenagers. But at the time it was like, you know what I mean? So of course that ended that situation. But which is for the better, quite
I
frankly. I
mean,
had
you bring this up too, going the different phases of school. Up until middle school, I had Marcus Behar, yes, Marcus, I'm saying your name out loud, making fun of
Mhm.
me, calling me Priya the fried banana because I was brown.
Oh,
Meanwhile, he was a
yeah.
Sephardic Jew. He was brown.
Mm,
and
yeah.
and then and then I go into high school and being brown was not cool. And so I just had this desire. I wish I was white. I wish I was white because maybe I'd be liked more. Plus all my insecurities and all the stuff I was dealing with. Then I go off into college and then beyond, and brown is ethnic and sexy. And it's like, and now I find the word ethnic to be
Mhm.
super offensive because it's like,
Mm.
what is that? What,
What
who
does
is
that
that
really
based
mean?
on?
It's
And
just
what it's
code
based.
for
Yeah,
not white.
exactly. And so you're bringing up, you're dredging up some thoughts in me too. Like, cause I was like, holy cow. Yeah, this goes
This
back
turn, didn't it?
multiple layers of that button being pressed, right? Multiple
Yeah.
layers.
Mm.
Wow.
You yeah, I know it's kind of wild. I had no one, yeah, that's it. But this is all goes into what makes us, but also what sets up these situations for it's so funny how we do get these messages and it ends up stifling us, but we also learn these patterns of response. And so
Yeah.
it builds up and it becomes bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden you find yourself, let's say, on a job and a man says something inappropriate or does whatever, and you just stay quiet. And I definitely was starting my work in the 80s and then the 90s, and there was none of this talk of right or wrong. And I think about some of the stuff that I went through that I just kind of tossed off as just regular stuff. But you learn how to be quiet and shut
Exactly.
your mouth and just deal with it and it will get better. Don't say anything about the coworker who does something inappropriate to you because that could impact your being able to get promoted or whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, I think
It
we all
stifles
learn.
your into it's your gut. I mean, your gut instinct telling you something's off here. But it's not safe to speak up about it because there might be consequences, and you just, it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, right? I
Mhm.
mean, you're right. It's so let's fast forward now to adult Alana. You know, now you're what did you go to school for, by the way? I think we've talked about this.
Oh my gosh. I have like the longest, most weird school issue. So I started out thinking I was going to get into business, and then I transferred to art school, and then I went to art school for a while, and then I went to fashion marketing school, which was kind of art but in a different way. And then I went back to school for business and had a kid, so I stopped for a while. When finally did get an organizational management degree with a project management certification, and in all things a biblical studies certification
Oh
as
my
well.
gosh.
Yeah,
I don't
so
think I
I
knew
mean,
that.
yeah, no, I mean, it was so funny because I would like transfer into schools and they would be matriculating me, and I would have like these ton of stuff because when I was before I had kids, I just and living in California at that time, I don't know what they are now, but when I was growing up, the community colleges, you could go to school for it started at $9 a credit, and then it raised up to $13 a credit. So, and it had a 10 credit max,
Oh
meaning
my
I could
gosh.
take 16 credits, but I was only ever going to pay that 10 credit max. So at $13, 10 credits, that's 130 bucks. I was going to school all the time. I was like, oh, let me take this women's studies thing. Oh, let me take this African studies thing. Oh, this sounds like an interesting thing, and humanities, different things. And I took all kinds of philosophy and thinking about stuff and religion. I mean, I had stuff from all over the place because I was just always in school. Every place I went, I would just hop into whatever junior college was around and just keep educating myself on just random stuff. And they would be like, I'd matriculate into school and they'd be like, what is all this stuff? Like, you just, and I'm like, I don't know. I just found it was interesting. So they'd be like, okay, and we'll put this here and put this there. And all that you have a lot of, I did a lot of like humanity and a lot of like things like that. They were like, you've hidden all these years from math. I'm like, you're freaking right, man. I'm hidden from math. So
Yeah.
it's like I finally had to buck down in order to get my finally get my bachelor's degree, and I had to do the algebra and I had to do the statistics to get it. And I was
Oh,
like, and that's why I didn't go for my MBA. I was gonna
yeah.
try and go for an MBA, and I was like, oh gosh, they're really gonna make me get into this math, and I can't, and so
Just
I didn't. And now with kids and all just life, I don't think I ever will. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe life will present itself and I will, but
you have so much knowledge just from, I mean, I've known you through Eric, your
mhm,
husband,
mhm,
um, indirectly, and I just met you in January for the first
yeah.
time in January.
Mhm.
And
Oh
like,
wow, is that all?
so I am just,
I
yeah,
love you.
I love you too. It's like immediate family. But just your knowledge and what a
Mhm,
wealth of knowledge you are. I could talk to you about the Bible and your wealth of knowledge. I could talk to you about business branding, your wealth
mhm.
of knowledge. So I think when you're in like the way that you described your education, that according to other people's standards, oh, that's not straight, that's not focused, that's not, it's construed as what do you even know? But that's actually I feel like that kind of learning resonates with me more. It's actually what I did the past 4 years is just keep learning
Mm.
and learning and learning and learning the things that I want rather than what's forced upon you. That's another way
Well,
of muting.
and I feel like as we talk about this, oh my gosh, we are going in all kinds of ways. When we talk about this unmuting thing, some of this muting is just society in general. Like, why do we have to learn in this way to do things? Like, I have learned through all my weird looking out here and there and then just doing it. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And I have found that that serves me now. I don't have the master's degree sitting in front of me because the path that says this is how you get a master's degree has never been completed. But I'll tell you, I know more than a lot of people holding master's degrees.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And that's not to be egocentric. I just do. You know what I mean? And yeah, so Gosh, we get muted all over the place.
Well, I just even heard I was on a webinar last week, and just even the system of education and the cost of education and what
Mhm.
it's getting you after you graduate, which is not much. You can literally start an online business without any degree. That systems in the next few years are going to be shifting from educational institutions to mentorship.
Well, I
Um,
think I'm sorry.
no.
But
It's
on
like,
that
this
line,
is
I think
amazing.
the capitalistic society that we're in, where everything is about making money, has led to that rise in these trade schools or in schools that specialize, or even the schools that aren't trade schools. But like you look at now, you see advertisements for get into the Harvard program or the Yale program, and it's like these different things so people can get that name on
Mhm.
their certificate or whatever it is, and it's really not. It's not what like Harvard level or these Ivy League school level things used to really mean super hard. And now what they've done is they've dumbed it down. They've aimed it towards people who are having to work so they can't dedicate all that time. And the education is nowhere near what it used to be. Yeah, no, don't get me started on that. It's such a
Oh,
racket. And I
I
think
went
that
to
it's
I went
ridiculous
to
the
an Ivy
amount of
League.
money that people spend on it. And that's, to be honest with you, that's why I haven't continued my education, because I'm just like, I am not about to slap down another $20,000 to get, or probably, God, probably more than that to get that degree right now. No, I just, in addition to my time, but like all that money, my family needs that money more than that institution,
Well,
you know?
I mean, for my master's more than 20 years ago, I went to an Ivy League for grad school. I didn't, I hardly learned any. I mean, for the amount that I paid, which was
Mhm.
close to $60,000, that
Wow.
was
Yeah, no, I'm
luckily
sure.
paid off by working in Title I schools. Um,
Mhm.
the way that I practiced therapy and the way that I got my children results, and even the adults, was from an inherent knowledge. It wasn't from
Mhm.
anything that I learned in grad school. But people see the certificate even here where I am, and all of a sudden it's like they see me differently, or I get a different level of respect because of the name. And I was like, don't do that, because this doesn't mean anything to me. I don't care. I don't want to throw it around that way. It was just, and if I could go back and rewind, I would not be going to that school. I'd go to a school where I was actually going to learn something, and it was a lot less. So, yeah,
And I don't know. Yeah, no, I mean, and that's the thing. I don't know. Do people really learn in school nowadays?
that's where I was on a Zoom a couple of weeks ago, and she was like, that it's shifting. It's shifting to mentorship. It's shifting to people who are talking about wealth in a different way, not traditional systems of retirement, 401ks. It's people who are thinking outside the box because they're thinking outside the system. I mean, really, what we're talking about is a breakdown of systems,
Mhm.
because systems suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And and like, how am I going to turn this in to the money that's going to keep a roof over my head, food on the table, and all of that stuff? I need to be able to do it quickly, you know? So, anyways, wow, we unmuting with Priya goes all over the place.
Well, you bring up, now this is a perfect segue into where you are now, and just even your business. You talk about, how do I make money for my family right now?
Mhm.
I would love to hear your story around your journey of within your businesses, and
Mhm.
how you were muted there, and what you started to, and then just your evolution to unmuting to your amazing business now.
Yeah, so here we are. We're like been talking all this time, and now I'll get into what I thought I was going to be starting this whole conversation on. I had no idea. This has been a wonderful conversation. But so when I started thinking about your podcast, I started thinking about muting. I said, I want to talk about being a mother and a wife, and how, I was staying home, and it kind of, so, as I said, I had gone to school, had a business degree. I had actually, it was so funny. I was one class away from finishing my bachelor's degree when Eric and I got married. And it was an online class that I had to do. And so I was like, oh, I'll do it. So I took this
Yeah.
online. Actually, it wasn't even an online, it wasn't even a whole class. It was one test that I had to take. And so when I got to New York, I took this test. I got my degree. I was like, "Yay! I'm finally done. I've got it." And you know, and then all of a sudden I'm pregnant and I'm having babies, and so I'm not working. So I've never officially worked for somebody else
Yeah.
since I got married. And I started taking care of kids, and I'm so thankful to be able to stay home. It was such, because I had a son already that when he was little, I was working and grinding and doing all this stuff. So being able to be at home and nurture my second son was a completely different experience for me. And it was such a blessing. And I have felt thankful at every turn. So I don't want to give the impression that I am not thankful, because it's
Mhm.
a
Oh,
blessing
you
to be
yeah.
able
You're
to stay home. Um, but what happened is I became a caregiver. And then it was like we started looking at the money, and Eric's mother was ill, and she had brain cancer and had a tumor removed. So it was like she was like a child. And so she needed around the clock care. And it became more and more intense over the years because the dementia was getting worse and worse. So I'm taking care of a kid, I'm taking care of his mom. And then my husband gets sick. So now I'm taking care of him. And then later on, we had twins. So now I've got 3 kids, my mother-in-law, my husband, and I'm just like caring, and I'm doing. And I'm just like in this mode, and I'm stifling everything, right? Because all I'm doing is being a caregiver. And that was never what I anticipated my life to be.
you're talking about this, and I'm, like, feeling exhaustion when you talk
Yeah,
about
no,
all the
let me tell
caring
you,
that you have to do. I'm like,
you
the
know,
question that's coming, like, "W who took care of you? What did you have?"
well,
Like
and that was just it. And I would get frustrated when people would say, like, you need to rest, you need to pamper yourself. And I'm like, what? Screw you. How on earth am I supposed to pamper myself and take care of this? I can't do it. Easy for you to say. I would get mad.
Mhm.
That was part of that stifling, because what was happening and what I came to realize later on is that I was stifling all these things, because I had always had this dream of me in corporate. And what I wanted to do back in the day is I wanted to be a diversity coach. I wanted to be in diversity before there was even a word for it. So it's turned into a whole other thing now than
Yeah.
what it was. But you have to mind yourself, back in the late 80s, early 90s, when I said, I feel like this world needs it. I remember saying to somebody when I was still in high school, because of the issues I've been through and the muting stuff that I had talked about,
Yeah.
we need somebody to come into these corporations and teach different races how to work together and to understand culturally, so that they can, respect the differences and maybe even pull learning
Pull
from
from
these
each
different
other.
things. So
Yeah.
I was talking to people about this, and people were like, Allana, that's not even a thing. What do you mean? And you know what I mean? So flash
And
forward all
look,
these years,
look what is happening now.
and it has like become like a really big thing. And it's gotten in to include things that I had never even dreamed of it including, but I was just like, because it was my experience. I was like, can we just get black and white people to get along? But but
Yeah.
anyway, so I had all these dreams to be in the corporate sphere when I thought corporate was like the thing to do. Now I don't really want to do that. But I never got to do that, and it was actually making me resentful and angry. And so I was pushing down not so much the voice of the words, but I was pushing down the dreams. So I was muting my skill set, my talents, and everything, um, in order to care for people. And I was getting resentful, and I was
Yeah.
getting angry, you know?
Yeah. I
So,
mean, I can only imagine.
yeah, I was totally, as I tired and worn out because I was up there, kids, babies, broke, whatever. And I stumbled into building a body care brand. A friend of mine, she was making body butter, and it was people were starting to like it. And I said, okay, well, if I come on, then I'm not only want to make body care, body butter.
Yeah.
I going to make a whole brand and I want to build it out like this. And I want to put systems around it. And I want to create set rigid formulas. And I want to do this and I wanted to do that. And so I started building all of this stuff. And so it went from being like, let's make body butter and some lip balms that we kind of know what we're doing, but we kind of don't, like a teaspoon of this, a teaspoon of that. But I said, if I come in, we need to be able to scale it. We need to introduce the metrics in there so that our formulas are consistent every time and and we need to make packaging that's going to appeal to people and we need to do this and that. And I need to get a brand line and we need to, and so I began building this line.
Now, this
And
came from within you. This didn't come from
yes,
education. This didn't come from any.
no,
This
I
is,
mean, as I said, I went to art school,
yeah.
but like all of this stuff was, and even just like the numbers of doing the formulas was like, I'm not the girl who likes that stuff. Like, but I began like, I was like starting to do that. And so even with all the care stuff, then now I was staying up crazy late at night and making stuff and I was doing stuff and I was getting happy and excited. And, I was building something. And then when you began to sell it out in public and people were resonating with it and wanting it and liking it, and that just fired me up. And so, I was like, I was pushing and adding even more on my plate, but I was getting happy because I was finally expressing myself. Because while I love my kids, I love my husband, I love my mother-in-law, just being a caregiver and making sure,
Oh,
did you eat, did you this, cleaning up, it became
so
draining
draining.
and it wasn't fun. And so I was getting angry because I'm like, I'm so much more.
Yeah.
And, um, so that was my first step of unmuting and I didn't even realize it, but I was like so hungry for it. And I mean, I began putting out and building things and people were like, what? And when people would think like, you mean you don't have your stuff manufactured by a big outsource? No, we do this ourselves. You mean you design your packaging? You designed your labels? You design? Yes, yes, this is all me. This is all my brainchild. And my business partner was into doing the formulas and I was doing all of the branding.
All of the
And
branding.
she was doing a lot of traveling. So then I began kind of stepping in and doing formulas too. And kind of, I was like pushing to perfect the formulas that we had and changing them and being like, hey, can you do this? Can you make this? How can we get it like this? I want to add in this. This hot ingredient here is hot on the market now. How can we build a product around that? I began doing all these things to build out these lines and it was resonating with people and it was really, really wonderful. And so that was my first step to like finding my voice again after years. And by that point, when we started those businesses, I had been married for about 9 years. My voice had been stifled um, all that time. And mind you, my husband's fabulous. He was always encouraging me, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel like I could. And that's the thing. So often we're muted because we don't feel like
You
we're
don't
allowed.
feel like, absolutely. You bring up an amazing point. It's like this inner self-muting that we do to ourselves, thinking that we can't. Um, and then it just taking that. It sounds like you just took a deep dive into it and said, and that was enough to let you
Yeah. And you know what?
blossom into this new space, right?
I mean, and I don't even know where the energy came from for the simple fact that I had all this stuff going on and I was building these lines and I was like, I was up late and I was still doing it and I'm going and like now I look back, I'm like, how did you even do this
Yeah.
stuff? Like I don't even know, but I think it was just that inner energy of finally letting some of my creativity free was just giving me inspiration and giving me energy that I didn't even know that I had. You know what I mean?
I think that
So,
that's what gets stifled, and people think that creativity and inspiration, or create, just even the word creative, you have to be an artist to be creative, or you have, and I think what you said in the beginning of this, you don't even realize that you're walking around like a zombie, that this inspiration inside of you, this creative, like fire, is stifled and you don't
mhm,
know until you know. Or
exactly.
you have something significant happen in your life that forces you into, like, it's almost like the universe or God or however you want to see it catapults you into looking at that and waking that up within yourself.
Yeah.
um Yeah, because we all have it. Every single person on this planet has it.
Absolutely, totally agree. And so I started doing these different things, and before you knew it, it just rolled and rolled, and it was very short lived. But I even opened up a store at one point. I had a crazy landlord and had to close it, but I mean, my store
Wow,
was
I didn't know you had a
like,
store.
I had custom furniture made. I had beautiful mural. I got like this amazing artist who did this gorgeous mural. I'll have to show it to you sometime. I mean, my store was so on point. But like, so it was just like creative, create. I've just been able to do so many things. I've even now, I was sharing with you a new um, audio meditation that I'm doing with binary beats and different things. And I'm about to, like, I'm putting together a book and I think it goes back honestly to my weird way, we call it weird, but my non-traditional way of educating,
Non-traditional, yeah.
non-traditional way of educating myself. It's like, oh, I want to learn that. I'm going to learn that. I want to learn this. I'm going to learn this. And so now I'm like, oh, you need to design a book. I can do that. Okay, let's just figure out how to do it and do it. And so I'm working on some books with my husband. I'm doing these different things. When I after my first businesses, my business partner and I kind of went our different ways, and so I started this next line that you see behind me, and it was like, okay, I really want to. I mean, I had been doing package design and different things, but now I wanted to really up that package design and really kind of embrace something different. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to deal with manufacturers overseas. Yeah, I can totally do that. I need to do this, I need to do that. I'm learning how the different graphics that need to be done and how they need to be done, and the font sizes. And okay, and so the FDA says I've got to have a certain size of font, I've got to have according to the package area, and da, da, da. So I'm learning package area and the
Oh
size of
my gosh.
and all these different things. And oh wait, you mean I have to use the inky names? I gotta do, I'm just taking in all this stuff, and I'm like, I can do it. But it's been so incredibly rewarding, so that even when sometimes I have to slow down to deal with other things in my life. Like, I got interrupted on our call today because I got a call from kids middle school. So thank you. She's editing that out, but that's life. You know what I
It's
mean?
life.
So even when things like that happen, you can still embrace your power when you begin to unmute, and it just begets.
So you've never gone back. You've just kept going. You've kept, I mean, I talk about forward moving energy. You've never, I don't want to use the word regressed, but you've never, that process of unmuting has remained. Like it keeps
Absolutely.
going. Yeah.
I'm sorry. If there have been times where I had to step back and slow down. And I think that that's something that's really important for women. We need to understand, or should I say for women in general, but maybe for women who are mothers and these different family things, if that's what you desire to do, which
Yeah.
I like taking care of my kids and I like doing those things. I don't think there's anything wrong. If I could have nannies, I would probably still have the nannies to free up some time, but I would still be very involved. I
Yeah.
might be involved in different ways that I can't quite be involved now. But um, when you have family and you have these different things as women, I feel we have to give ourselves grace, because so
Yes.
often, especially in this Instagram world where everybody's looking at all these perfect people and these perfect lives and their snippets, and you're going, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing. What they like, for example, I hear about body care people who have we built this brand in 9 months and we're selling $1 million, and I go, oh, I'm not doing that. And I feel like we have to give ourselves grace to know that everybody's path is different.
Absolutely.
Know all of the background stories. We have to give ourselves credit and kudos for the things that are good. Somebody might have been able to build a brand to $1 million in a year and a half, but did they build a child? Did they rear a child? You know what I mean? So I have to give myself that grace to go, this is my path. It might take me sometimes what feels a little bit longer, but that's okay. And I'm picking up knowledge doing those things. And I'll get to where I need to be. My path is always there for me. And God, creator, spirit, he always makes a way, whatever it is. But we just have to take those first steps to like walk into it with our arms open and being like, let's do it.
I love
And
it. I love that. Just that you said the path, and it's there. It's there for every single person. We just
it
have to
is.
take that first plunge
And
into it.
I'm going to tell you, I still don't exactly know completely where the path is going. I have this vision of where I'm wanting it to go, and I can see different things coming, but I have no idea what's going to twists and turns are going to come. But it has been such a wonderful ride. And the more that I'm able to create and do and give myself space, I'm happy. Like I took a little bit of a hiatus from my break, from my brand to help my husband with his brand and to just do different things and even pursue spiritual. Like I've been doing more spiritual stuff. I'm getting certified in Ho'oponopono right now. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's
you know.
amazing. Your learning continues. What
Mhm.
I love and what I'm sensing from you is just the passion and that you're having fun with it. Like this path open for you, you're taking action. You don't know where you're going with it, but you're having fun. And I was listening to my morning recordings, and he was talking about just even because I talk about financial abundance in my private coaching, and just it's there for all of us. It's like it's not just meant for a select few, it's there for everyone. And you need to have fun. You need to have fun as you're building your business. You need to have fun as you're calling this money in. You need to have fun and like get in a flow with it. And I can sense from you, you're in that flow with it and having fun with
Yeah,
it.
I am, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to retoggle. We have to always
Right.
give ourselves grace to know, like, okay, that
Yep.
wasn't for me. This is for me. So it's always like these, okay,
I
that
see
didn't
it
work.
as
Let me move.
Pac-Man. I'm a total 80s child, and Pac-Man would go and see the ghost
Mhm.
and pivot, and then he'd
Oh,
see the ghost and pivot. And I'm just constantly talking about pivoting, pivoting, pivoting. It's
absolutely.
never a straight line. We have to pivot. And sometimes
Hmm.
we invest money into things that maybe didn't do the thing for us. It's an investment. We tried it. Everything works. Now we pivot. Now we pivot. Now we pivot.
And there's definitely like even when you say like you invest money in it and then it doesn't. I found like there have been things like that, but
Yeah.
then later on I go, "Oh, I'm using that piece of knowledge that I had from
Yeah.
that." So I didn't use it in the way that maybe I had intended, but I'm still using it. And it's been such an amazing ride.
I
So
love this. I feel like I got a journey through your life, a very short, almost hour journey through your life.
yeah, fabulous.
Before we just have a few more minutes, I would love, I mean, I see your beautiful evil eye in the back.
Mm,
That's, and then underneath it, when you moved before, your little placard about Sabalipure. So I would just love for you to share a little bit about that. I've purchased them, and I
yeah,
can vouch that they are incredible. So
thank
yeah,
you.
we'll
Thank you.
drop the links to these products in the description. So check it out.
Mhm.
Tell us what you have.
So yeah, I so this is my brand. Let me just hold it up. So these are my deodorants. They are trace mineral. They help to detox your body. They help to balance your endocrine system. They get your lymphatic system flowing. This was all created around thinking about my mother-in-law who had cancer, and I was thinking about like what would we try and do if we wanted to make something that um, maybe could have stopped her from getting cancer. So I
Mm-hmm.
started creating these things, and it came with a whole lot of other things of being aware of all the toxins in our world and
Mm-hmm.
all the different chemicals that we put on our bodies, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I started doing that sort of thing, and so the packaging, these are based on the circadian rhythm. So we've got uh, sunrise, sunset, night, but they're my three different.
They all smell incredible,
Thank you. They're my
and
three
it
different.
works.
Then we have our lip balms, and as you can see, they gradate through. And these are organic with organic flavors, organic essential oils. I use things like evening primrose and chia seed and metafoam seed. Like I use ingredients that nobody uses because I just feel like, why not? We should use high quality, rich, indulgent things. So like, I love this stuff. I do. My flavors are cherry, lychee, ginger.
Oh, I
I
love
have
lychees.
chai latte. Just I
Yeah.
really try to get rich into what nature and herbs can do. I have a remineralizing organic tooth powder that is phenomenal. It's a transition for people, but I'm telling you, this is way better than any toothpaste, and it actually heals your mouth and detoxifies your mouth. I'm really
I
big on.
can vouch for all of these.
Thank you.
I
I'm
what
really big
Yeah.
on like the anti-toxification that kind of delves into the Ayurvedic practice and thoughts on how to be in the constant state of detoxification, not just like these grand events where I'm detoxing for 2 weeks. Ooh.
Mhm.
Kind of really hard to do, I think, sometimes, and we set ourselves up to then be disappointed that we didn't like stick to it for the 2 weeks or the month or whatever. So anyways, yeah, I've been able to create all of this stuff around the passion that I have, which is just health and trying to like give healthy options. I've had women who are able to use my products after cancer, because it's healthier for them, or give them to their children who are experiencing early puberty things and beginning to smell much earlier than we ever did because of all the
Mhm.
toxic antibiotics
Mhm.
and all of the things that are in us,
Oh, that's
and
a
I
whole other episode.
suggest to moms like,
Yeah.
you want this for your kids, not like the chemicals. Yes, you can pick the chemicals up very easily at Target, but um, it's not worth it. Like I tell people, a native is like about 15 bucks. This is 17. This is actually more product than native. This
Yep.
is 3 ounces, whereas native is like 2.3,
It
4.
lasts. It lasts a while,
Yes,
and you
about
smell
3 months.
great. The tooth powder whitened my teeth. So, like, I want to say,
Yeah,
not that I had discolored teeth, but I was so shocked at how white they became by
it
using your tooth
really
powder.
helps.
I have this morning ritual, evening ritual that I love doing with your tongue cleaner. The floss is amazing. I actually I mean, I used to hate flossing, but yep. So,
Yeah,
like, we need to
you
drop the
know,
links in here if you
and
are looking for natural. Yeah. And I love that little refillable thing because it's
yeah.
sustainable. I mean,
And all the packages are compostable, like they're
this is
FSC certified.
amazing.
So and these are actually made from recycled paper. Like no trees were cut down to make this. This is all recycled paper that have been made into my tubes, but they're also compostable. So I really wanted to introduce all these passions that I have into the world because I feel like we have far too much plastic. Like we're
Oh,
that's a whole
yeah.
other
That's a
conversation.
whole other conversation. My town has decided that they're going to stop recycling plastic, but then I heard they just even take it all to the dumpster anyway. So it just makes people feel better. I mean,
It's really like it's sad.
it's
Even
sad.
of the plastic that we do recycle, only about maybe 9% of it actually gets recycled. The rest of it just gets dumped into the landfills or wherever. And it makes us feel good, and I'll still do it. I'll still do it for that 9% that get
Yeah.
done. But the goal needs to be for more and more people to do things like this. And I use no synthetics, no palm
No.
oil. I mean, the autoimmune issues that are caused due to the preservatives, the synthetics, the artificial fragrances, all these different things. I don't have any of that in my products. That's something that I'm super passionate about. Is that we have to take our dependency off of these preservatives. My line is preservative free. Um, it just we've got to stop all that. So yeah, I'm do if you're anything like that resonates with you, please check out my website,
Yeah.
laypure.com. I think you'll drop it here.
I'll
But
drop it here, sabalipure.com. And yeah, I mean, this was incredible. And I feel like we could keep going. Just,
mhm.
I usually like my guests to share a closing thought just for the viewers, something that's, you know, behind your message of unmuting. What would you, and now you have, I feel like your message has been about exploring your passions, and just to mothers and, to women. So what do you, in closing, what do you have to say to the people watching
Oh
here?
my goodness. I think my biggest thing is to believe in yourself, to not judge yourself against what other people are doing. Understand that there's always a backstory to what you see, and that if you just keep moving, you will get to where you want to go, but you have to keep moving.
Yep.
And don't be afraid. Like, I am starting to speak my truth more and more, and it is so beneficial and it's freeing. So I guess that's it. Was that a
Well,
lot?
thank you for speaking your truth with me today. We're
Thank
gonna have
you.
you on again, and I think it will be fun to have you and Eric on together, because that would just be a
Oh my
total
gosh,
awesome
that would
jam
be a
time.
lot of
They're
fun.
so much fun. So I will drop your links into the description, and everybody follow Allana.
Yes,
We'll drop
please
all the
follow
links.
me. Follow
Yes,
me,
get
follow
our
me.
products, especially if you are love natural products and you're looking for a natural product line. We will put that all in the
Yeah.
description.
Ask me any questions too. I love having those types of conversations about ingredients and whatnot. So ask me anything.
Thank you.
Yay,
Mwah.
so fun.